So, on my fourth day of van life, I woke up in Fort Pierre National Grassland in South Dakota. I woke up to the peaceful sound of birds chirping and the water in the reservoir, and there were cows mooing in the distance. And then this happened.
Okay, so here's what happened. I had just left the grassland and I was on my way back to the interstate, and I stopped in Vivian, South Dakota to fill my tank. That's also right about when my camera died, which is why I don't have any footage from the rest of the day, which is why I'm doing this instead. So I filled my tank and I got back on the ramp that would put me on Interstate 90, and the van was driving perfectly fine. It was accelerating, it was doing just fine. And once I got in the interstate, there was a hill right away, and the van kind of started to slow down, which that's just kind of how it drives. Every time I go uphill, it just sort of starts to slow down. So I thought it was normal. So as I was going up the hill, I was going maybe 40, and right when I got to the top of the hill, my van just quit. It stalled, the engine cut off, the steering wheel locked up, it just stopped. So I had to coast over to the side of the highway. And I tried to start it a few times, and it would sort of rev up like it was going to start, but then nothing would happen and it wouldn't actually start. So I didn't really have any other choice, and I called a tow, and I just kind of waited on the side of the highway. And I had to wait 30 minutes because keep in mind, I was literally in the middle of nowhere. And when the tow got there, he was actually able to start the van right away. He just got in and started it, it was fine. So, but he still loaded out onto his tow truck or whatever, and he brought me to the nearest shop, which was another 30 minutes away in Pierre. And it was a shop in Pierre called Graham's, and they were actually in a small town like Pierre. Everything kind of closes up on Saturday and doesn't usually open up again until Monday. And it was Saturday when all this happened. So Graham's was actually closed, but there were a couple guys still there, and they were really nice, and they still took a look at it. They checked the battery, the transmission, the alternator, pretty much everything they could think of, and everything seemed fine. So they couldn't find anything wrong with it, so they said it was either just a batch of bad gas or it was just a fluke. So there wasn't really anything they could do about it, there wasn't really anything I could do about it, so, I paid for my $260 tow, and then I took off. And I got 5 minutes out of Pierre, and as soon as I started to accelerate from 35 to 40, it stalled again. So I waited 10 minutes, and then I could start it again. And then I drove it back to Graham's, but by then there was nobody there, because they were closed. So luckily there were a lot of shops in that area, so I just kind of drove around to different shops. I went to 4 different ones, and most of them were closed, and the ones that were open were just too busy to take me in, so I didn't really have any choice but to wait until Monday. So I was gonna get a hotel, and I was on my way to the hotel when this motorcycle pulled up next to my car, and he was making the hand motion to roll down my window. So I did, and he started talking, and I realized it was one of the mechanics from Graham's, and he was like, "Oh, so it's driving better now?" And I was like, "No, it actually stalled again." So he was like, "Okay, follow me." And he took off, and so I followed him on his motorcycle, and he took me to one of the shops that I had already gone to, and it was one of the ones that had told me I was too busy, or that they were too busy to take me in. So he was like, "Okay, fine, you can come back to Graham's and I'll take another look at it," which, it's he was the nicest mechanic I've ever met in my life. And so he took me back to Graham's, and what was I saying? He took me back to Graham's, and he took another look at it, and while he was looking at it, I told him, because while I was driving around to different shops, I had called my dad to ask what he thought, and my dad thought it could have something to do with the key fob, because apparently that's a thing with these types of vans. Sometimes the key fobs, if the battery is going dead or just sometimes they need to be like not recharged, but sometimes if the battery goes dead, it can cause electrical issues like that. So I told the mechanic that, and he took me over to the auto parts store, and while we were there, he had the guy there put new batteries in the key fobs, and um, yeah, and then while he was looking at it, he said it could be the catalytic converter, but there was really nothing he could do about that until Monday. So again, I didn't really have any choice but to wait. And yeah, so by the way, I made this process sound like kind of short, but this mechanic was like changing batteries in my key fobs and looking at my car for like 3 hours out of his day when he wasn't even supposed to be working, which just so nice. Yeah. Yeah, so he told me basically I could come back on Monday and all the other mechanics could look at it and see if they could find anything, or if they also thought it was a catalytic converter, or if they thought it was a key fob or whatever. So, yeah, I had to get a hotel. And that's everything that happened on that Saturday, my 4th day of van life. Yeah.
Wasn't terrible. I had a nice place to work and use free Wi-Fi. Also, I was able to park the van right outside the window. Of course, I did have a couple of mental breakdowns, but I guess it was all just part of the experience.
It's always in the washing machine, but never really getting clean. This stain is just impossible. I walk to the edge of town and try so hard to make it drown, but this pain is just impossible. I guess I'll have to wait another day. I tried my best to wash away. I never wanna feel like this again. No, I never wanna go through this again. No, can I keep from going around? I never wanna feel like this again. No.
I tried to stay sane by hiking and exploring the town. I just have to say that everyone I talked to was so nice. People there love to smile and love to strike up little conversations. They were all just so genuine and so kind. Honestly, I can't think of a better place to have broken down. I took a hike along the Missouri River on a trail called the Lewis and Clark Trail. The trail wound through the woods and along the river. At some point, I discovered a little shrine of sorts. I wasn't sure what it was for at first, until I saw the centerpiece. As I walked, I remembered something that the tow truck driver had said. We were talking about the beautiful scenery, and he said something along the lines of, I don't have to live in South Dakota. I get to live in South Dakota. So, I tried to think of it something like that. I didn't have to be stuck in South Dakota. I got to be stuck in South Dakota. Except, I did actually have to be stuck there, because that's where the car broke down, but just trying to stay positive, I guess.